Hello and welcome to today's special GCV Connect pitch event and roundtable discussion centered around 5G connectivity in the telecom space. My name is Kalyan Andonov and I am really delighted to be your host today along with Ken Gatz, the founder and CEO of our partner and sponsor Procedure. So welcome, Ken.
Thank you, Kellyanne.
And I am also delighted to have with me here as guest speakers, panelists, and judges, Amir Khan, Managing Director at Mao 5G Accelerator, Jim Brismizis, founder and general partner at 5G Open Innovation Lab, and Rob Peets, Director of Investment Analysis at TELUS Ventures. We were also supposed to be joined by Pablo Moro from Telefonica Ventures, but he couldn't join because of a health problem. So we do wish Pablo a speedy recovery. However, to the people who are here, delighted to have you on board, guys. Welcome all. Now let's have a look at the agenda briefly for today. First, I'm gonna give everyone a very brief overview of our latest data on the telecom sector, allowing a few more delegates to join in and to watch this live in the meantime. And this, of course, will be followed by the pitch session, which will be led by Ken. And then we will have the roundtable and Q&A discussion. I'd like to remind everyone that you can use either the chat or the Q&A function on your Zoom in order to submit questions, which we will try to answer towards the end of today's session. Before we kick off, I'd like to give everyone a disclaimer that no part of this presentation is to be construed as any sort of investment advice under any form whatsoever. The purpose of the session is purely informative. And a few words about us, Mosonia, as a company. We are a media company that has two major online monthly publications, Global Corporate Venturing, which as its name implies is centered on corporate venture capital, and Global University Venturing, which deals with rounds raised by startups stemming from academia. We have a couple other publications that are still kind of in the works and in development right now. We offer other services such as the GCV Institute, which is a training program for up-and-coming CVCs, as well as GCV Analytics, which I run. And of course, there's the GCV Connect platform, which allows corporates and other investors to share deal flow and investment ideas. And the platform is, of course, powered by our partner and sponsor Procedure. And today's session is co-organized with Procedure. So aside from this, we at GCV have been known for the events and conferences on corporate venture capital that we put together around the world. And I am really happy to say that we're finally back to live events. And we are restarting with our flagship GCVI Summit in Monterey, California, which will take place next week. Normally, this event would bring anywhere from 700 to 900 delegates, people from the industry, startups, etc. But this year we've had to cap the attendance to about half of that in order to allow for proper social distancing and to run the event in an outdoor setting. The tickets for the event, because of the huge interest and impatience to go back to live and in-person contact, have been nearly sold out. So for those of you who might be interested to go, please get in touch with some of my colleagues and see if you can get your ticket. We have the other big event that we've been putting together for quite some time, restarting. This is the GCV London Symposium, which sort of brings together Europe's leading corporate venturing units, and it's going to be run during the first week of November, essentially with November the 3rd and November the 4th being the main days of the event. So if you're interested and if you're located in Europe or nearby, or you can travel, this might be an interesting opportunity to connect with your peers face to face and one-on-one. Now, with these announcements out of the way, let me just take a brief look at the data. In terms of what we've seen, we've seen that over the last year and a half, the deals done by corporates from the telecom sector have remained largely flat, especially in 2020 versus the previous year. However, the total estimated dollars that stood at nearly 18 billion, as you can see here, were about half of the 40 billion in the previous year, clearly reflecting the impact of the pandemic and the COVID-19 shock. However, during this year and by the end of August, we've definitely seen some upward momentum in both the number of deals and the total estimated dollars in those deals. And as you can see, these are investments across pretty much across all sectors, not just pure play telecom. We've seen similar upward momentum in terms of the exits of telecom corporates in 2020 and so far this year as well. This is a clear reflection of the liquidity injections that we have witnessed from central banks across pretty much the entire developed world. And this has obviously reflected quite a bit in valuations in both public and private markets, as well as the SPAC mania, which by now we are all too familiar with. In terms of the pure play telecoms startups, they have remained kind of flat, almost flat in number, though there does seem to be some sort of upward pressure in valuations, considering this peak in 2020, and we're yet to see how we're going to end up this year. In terms of funding initiatives targeting telecoms and other sectors, kind of flat in numbers in a similar way, but up in the total estimated dollars. Largely, this is the effect of SoftBank recapitalizing its second vision fund with a very substantial chunk of money. A few quick words on general trends about the telecom sector. Telecoms has been and is one of the most technologically disrupted sectors out there, and this is largely one of the reasons why incumbents in the sector are looking actively for partnerships and synergies with a wide host of players and stakeholders. On the venturing scene, we've seen even some telecom carriers venturing units look for capital from third parties as LPs, as I've listed a few examples here. In terms of 5G, which is the big thing that's been going on over the past few years in the sector, the sentiment is cautiously optimistic. Though recent surveys from Deloitte suggest that investments in 5G and Wi-Fi 6 technologies have been accelerated during the pandemic, and that enterprises tend to see those technologies as a way to bolster their ability to address current and future disruptions, as well as an opportunity to create new solutions. This is a quote I took straight from the Deloitte study. I'm hoping we could discuss some of these overall developments with the judges and panelists and the rest of the panelists later on. So with that, I'm going to conclude my brief data overview here. And before I pass on to Ken, I would just like to say how delighted I am to see a really truly diverse selection of founders that are going to pitch just shortly. They will be introduced in just a few moments. So actually, without further ado, over to you, Ken.
Thank you, Kellyanne, and welcome everyone to GCV Connect's 5G connectivity event. Just briefly, Proseeder, our mission here with GCV, which is the largest organization for corporate venture investors in the world. Our goal here is to connect the supply and demand for corporate innovation. So connecting the startups with corporate partners for strategic relationships and commercial agreements, as well as potential investments. Proseeder is a platform used by large Fortune 500 companies to discover new opportunities, manage their workflow around these transactions, and then visualize their portfolio in a lot of different aspects. One big announcement for us, which will be launching at the GCV event in Monterey, is Deal Teams, which is the version of Procedure that is 100% native on Salesforce, built on the Salesforce App Exchange. And it empowers deal teams that are doing financing transactions, mergers, acquisitions, venture investments to do all of their operational activities on the Salesforce platform. So anyone who is interested in that, anyone who is using Salesforce in their corporate operations, please feel free to reach out to us. And with that, I'd love to introduce our three panelists, starting with Jim Brzmitis, founder and general partner of the 5G Open Innovation Lab. Jim, if you want to just talk a little bit about what you're doing at 5G Open Innovation Lab and your background.
Yeah, certainly. Ken, thanks for involving me. Ken and I have a bit of a long history from my time at Microsoft, so it's always great to spend some time with you in forums like this. Hey everyone, my name is Jim Brzmitis. I'm the founder of the 5G Open Innovation Lab. We look for innovation on the software side of 5G. So much of the industry looks at 5G for its opportunity and connectivity. We believe strongly that that opportunity exists, but there's also a fairly large opportunity for the carriers to reimagine and reinvent their services such that software could really play a pretty big role in the value that their networks create. And we're thinking of that particularly on the edge as it relates to telco infrastructure. We run a program 2 times a year. It's a multi-stage, non-accelerator, so we don't take any equity. There are no fees to participate. We just launched our 4th batch last week. We're in week 2 of a 12-week journey with them. And I'll end with our companies. There's about 69 of them in our portfolio. We just crossed over $500 million of pre-program funding and $110 million of post-program funding in our teams. And then finally, we're backed by excellent partners that include Microsoft and Intel and T-Mobile, and Accenture and Avanade, and a long list. We have 11 in total and a few more that we're hopefully announcing later this month. Thanks for letting me be part of today's session.
Great, thank you for joining us, Jim. And Rob Peets, Rob is the Director of Investments at TELUS Ventures. Rob, you want to just tell us a little bit about what you're doing at TELUS?
Absolutely. So the TELUS Ventures Group is the strategic corporate venture capital group for TELUS, and emphasize that word strategic because we do need an alignment to a business unit, thus our interest in today's call. And we've been around for 21 years now. We've deployed several $100 million in capital. We've got a portfolio of around 50 companies, all of which have that strategic alignment back to TELUS. And we're very excited about the companies here today because 5G is a major area of focus for us, both on the network side, but then also on the services side as well. And so we're looking for opportunities in both areas.
Great, thank you so much, Rob. And then finally, Amir Khan, who is the Managing Director of the Marl 5G Accelerator. Amir, if you want to just give a quick intro.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. I appreciate it. Hi, this is Amir from Marl 5G Accelerator. We're 5G use case accelerator, meaning we invest in companies and technologies that are working in 5G use cases. So anywhere from mobility, AR, VR, cybersecurity, logistics. So we are early stage investors. We come in and at the founder level stage, founder team level stage. We invested so far about 35 companies. And we're actually expanding to East Coast. So we're announcing next week for East Coast operation. So at this time, we are investing about 32 companies a year, and we'll be by next year, we'll be investing about 100 companies a year. So we're looking for early stage founders who are working for 5G use cases.
Awesome. Amir, congrats on that, and thank you for joining us. And with that, we'd love to welcome the startups that are presenting here today. First up, we'll get right into it, and feel free to raise your hand if you have questions for them afterwards. The presentations will be 7 minutes with 2 to 3 minutes of Q&A from the panelists or anyone on the call. You can put that in the chat as well. So first up is Jeff Yee from Airwave. Jeff, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. I'll begin by introducing myself, and then I'll share my screen for the pitch. But a little bit about myself. Since this is a 5G, I'll focus specifically on my background in 5G. But it all begins really when wireless internet was first formed. I've been a part of the team that launched the very first internet phone in the US, which was PocketNet. I was back in my days at AT&T. After AT&T, Spent about a decade or so at software startups, founding one, 3 of which have been acquired. And then more specific to 5G, last 5-6 years, I have been working on 5G. Prior to Airwave, I worked at ZTE. I led the global product development, working with carriers around the world on their 5G strategies. And that's really where Airwave comes from, which is understanding that 5G requires higher frequency has shorter ranges, and the big problem is siting, right? How do you get more radios out there and the real estate needed for the radios? So with that, I'll tell you a little bit more about Airwave, and I'm going to share my screen to do so. So back to that problem that I was mentioning is siting, right? It's a real estate problem at the end of the day. 4G frequencies, and really the frequencies beyond there, longer range. So you build a big antenna and it goes a much further range than 5G. 5G frequencies, depending on which ones are being used, from the mid-band spectrum to, or even worse, the high-band spectrum, just needs a lot of radios. Millions and millions of radios need to be deployed just for the mobile carriers. 5G also opens up opportunity for broadband providers, internet providers that are now going wireless. And so in addition to millions of sites needed for the mobile operators for phones, we're also seeing a huge demand for internet operators as well, and IoT providers. So with the problem of millions of new small cells that need to be deployed, what's the solution? We use what's called an operator host subscriber model, where the host is independent of an operator. It's a property owner, and they are basically giving roof rights or land rights to place a small cell on that property. It's a model that's a lot faster to expand. It's more economical, especially for smaller operators. Question is how to do so. How do you link the operator and the host? And that's essentially what we have built at Airwave. It's an actual screenshot of the application that you see there. We use 2D and 3D maps to be able to give an idea of what coverage looks like for different frequencies. Green in this case is good. Yellow means you might need another site. And we use this to be able to find hosts that are in our system already to match with operators. And they're presented with offers, all online. And then equipment is installed at that host. That can also be transacted through our platform as well to find installers in a geographic region that can go on site and do the installation. The host provides the internet now to the surrounding area. And again, this can be anything that 5G supports: mobile phones, internet, broadband essentially into the home or business, as well as IoT devices. And in fact, we have use cases and we're working with companies for all of those. The key to making it all of this work, of course, is the compensation model. Property owners expect to get paid. We live in a world now with blockchain, and so we're using blockchain really as a way, just as a trust mechanism, if you will. We're going to put something in the network that is able to make sure that a small cell is at the location that the operator needs, right? You can't just sign up for it and then kind of move things around. That plus validating other things such as connections is basically tasks that get put in a network to ensure that the operator is paying the right thing for the right service. Now, since we have done this, it becomes tokenized, if you will. And an operator can pay a user in whatever currency. In the US, that might be US dollars. In Telus' case, it could be Canadian dollars. But since it has been tokenized, we also have the ability to, if an operator wants to explore a cryptocurrency as an incentive, there's actually a strong demand for people that are really interested in mining tokens. Anyway, the infrastructure actually supports both, but it all begins with a trust mechanism and ensuring that the small cell is installed at the right place and is actually connected to real users. And that's what it comes down to. Our traction and where we're at so far, 8 operators. 5 of them are ISPs. One is a mobile operator, and then we do have site acquisition companies using it on behalf of partners as well. We have 2 million hosts. Those are addresses in our system. Our business model is a transaction-based business model. We get a monthly fee from the property owners. The actual software is free for our operators to use, and we make money on the back end. It's a $160 billion industry employing mobile operators, so you might be aware that globally it's a $100 billion business. The remaining $60 billion is from broadband operators. Competitors, there are solutions out here. No one has seen significant traction so far, especially on the planning side for our competition. We do the full gamut, which includes management as well. Sorry, I'm speeding up with probably about a minute left. We have been working on this for a year and a half. Went into beta earlier this year with our first beta customers and launched the application more recently. And I'll finish this up with a team about, a slide about the team. I introduced myself earlier. One of my key things I did at AT&T was build a mobile commerce unit, which turned out to be a billion-dollar business. We also have Matthew Nolan, who led AT&T's small cell deployments, as well as on the advisory board, Glenn Lurie, former CEO. I'll let you read the rest of them since I think I'm out of time, but short summary is a great team of wireless knowledge as well as software platforms as well. And I think I'm probably out of time, so I'll leave it at that and take some questions now.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Questions for Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff, this is Jim. Great presentation. Thank you for doing that. One practical question I have is your platform helps to identify or provide operators the chance to identify which areas of a network might need additional support and then deploy that support as well. How are they thinking through the backhaul? Are you essentially piggybacking off of a host's own backhaul? And is that an issue for the carriers? Do they want their own dedicated circuits to those radios?
Yeah, so actually most of the addresses that we have, 95% of all the addresses are fiber ready. They're coming from fiber providers. And then the operator will know what that fiber provider is. Classic example is if it's AT&T fiber that's going into a building, Verizon may not want to use it. So they'll see that information and they can choose to decline it.
Got it. Has that been an issue so far in some of your earlier deployments? No,
it hasn't.
Okay. Last question is, I appreciate I'm not a blockchain expert, and I appreciate the reasons why you put together that approach. Is that being seen favorable by the carriers?
The blockchain is one of the newer things that we have added to the platform. We actually have the ability to do both. We call it the traditional way as well as blockchain. Blockchain is just a little bit more public. It's harder to tamper with. And so when we want to validate that the small cell is truly at the location and is serving customers, it just becomes public record, right? And so no one can dispute it at that point.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
This is Amir from Marl. Jim, you stuck my last question. But I just wanted to ask you, so the equipment wise, are you working with the telcos who are making that equipment, or you guys are working? It's your equipment?
So we are agnostic to the equipment. I knew I kind of flew through that competitor slide. There was one at the competition, Helium, very different company, by the way, but it uses firmware on existing hardware, their hardware. So we're agnostic to the hardware. It's whatever the operator's already using, and then we just need API access, and it's read-only API access.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just really quickly, do you have a demographic of who the subscribers are, and what, if in sense of magnitude, what kind of monthly fee are they seeing?
Oh, the end subscribers. Really, those are the end subscribers for the operators.
The host. Sorry, the host.
Oh, sorry, yeah, the host. Yeah. The hosts are just, like I said, it's a lot of it comes from fiber companies. So we have done deals with 48 fiber providers so far. They provided a lot of those addresses that make up our database. And the other ones come from property management firms. But to answer your question, because a lot of them come from fiber companies, it's fiber ready. 78% of our database is commercial properties. So they're commercial properties in cities, around the world. Actually, we have a lot of rural cities as well, but it's going to typically be kind of city center.
Okay, so it's not necessarily single family homes that you're building these on as in one of the little icons, but it's more commercial and retail buildings.
Yeah, we do have some of that too, right? A little more than 20% is residential, and some of that is not even going to have fiber, which still is important to us, maybe for these IoT devices that don't need as much bandwidth.
Gotcha. Great, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. Next up is Neha Satak from Astrom Technologies.
Thanks, Ken. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Neha Satak. I am the co-founder and CEO of Astrom. Astrom is a deep tech company developing hardware and software solutions in millimeter wave frequencies, basically to solve the backhaul problem that exists in rural areas and also what will also expedite the deployment of 5G. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. What we are building is products which provide wireless fiber capacity wirelessly, both for deployment of 5G networks, defense communication, and rural broadband. As a company, we are 5 years old. We've raised close to $5 million in funding as well as in grants. The core technology that we use for our product is patented, both in US and in India. We have a dedicated team of 29 full-time employees, and we have about 400K in paid pilots. The early adopters for our products are in telecom and defense industry, and we have won several awards for the technology and the products that we are building. In terms of our core team, the company was founded by two of us. I'm a PhD in aerospace engineering from Texas A&M. I also have electronics and communication background. I worked for the Air Force Research Lab for about a year and a half, after which I started Astrom. My co-founder Prasad is also a PhD and has a successful startup, Streamer Technologies, before Astrom. And we are supported by an amazing, business, leadership team, as well as technology leadership team, people with diverse background who sort of bring a lot of innovative ideas into what we do. The problem that we are solving is that, if you look at telecom deployment in the whole world, you would see that, fiber is present, but it's not present everywhere. And because of the high cost and time it takes to deploy fiber, a lot of the rural area remains to be unconnected or poorly connected. And that's a primary problem that we are solving for developing countries, where we are building products which can essentially extend the range of fiber to connect rural areas by providing them with fiber-like speeds, backhaul, capacity. But that's not true only for developing countries. In developed countries also, like for example, US is a great market for us, where in the next few years, upwards of 20 billion will be spent in connecting the rural areas. And one of the primary problems that we see is that there are a lot of houses which are in small geographic areas which are totally unconnected or poorly connected with any kind of fiber infrastructure. But the new upcoming market for our product is actually in 5G deployment. So if you look at the 5G infrastructure, the number of cell sites are going up by a considerable amount. And it will take a tremendous amount of money and time if you want to connect each and every 5G cell site with fiber link. So what we provide is basically a product which can decrease the cost of 5G deployment and accelerate the time it takes to deploy 5G in urban areas as well as suburban areas. Basically, the problem that we are solving is more pronounced because the current microwave products either are too expensive or they are very limited in the capacity that they provide. And we solve both of these problems through the product that we have developed. We have developed basically the world's first multi-beam E-band radio. E-band frequencies are millimeter wave frequencies in which you have a really high availability of spectrum, and you can basically provide multi-gigabit speeds really easily. So we are the first company in the world who has developed a multi-beam radio, which means that with one single radio, we can actually distribute capacity to up to 4 surrounding towers. And because of that feature, actually, we decrease a lot of the capex cost that goes into deploying wireless links for operators. One of the key features of our technology, which makes it special, is that it's completely software driven. We have proprietary algorithms, which basically makes it really, really easy to deploy and maintain. Let me explain a little bit about that. E-band links, are line of sight, and it's practically really, really difficult to deploy because you have a really, really narrow beam that you need to align between 2 towers. And we solve all of that problem, completely with an automated algorithm because the technology that we have developed has complete electronic beam steering. You generally face the radio in the right direction and it automatically aligns. And the distances that we can communicate to are upwards of 10 kilometers. So this product is useful for short range urban environment and also long range rural environment. The key customer traction that we have received so far, this is the year when we actually started field trialing our product. And the first customer who has signed up for a paid trial is one of the biggest tower operators in Indonesia called Protolindo. And we also have customers like Indian Army and Indian Navy for the defense communication segment. We are also a company who was really selected very early on by Cisco to accelerate. And we are also part of the Evo Nexus accelerator program in San Diego, which is sponsored by Qualcomm and Verizon. And then 2 other global programs called Unreasonable Future and Impact Collective, who essentially back startups who have an impact story to tell. What we are seeking today are paid pilot opportunities in US and Canada, and also product validation in 5G labs as front haul, mid haul, and back haul. For GigaMesh product as front haul, mid haul, and back haul. Thank you. So I would take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Neha. This is Jim. A great presentation. One question I have, I saw you have one commercial deployment. The carriers that I've had a chance to interact with really do bet on a handful of vendors, and you can name them. How are you able to break through on that? Or is it still something you're pushing to break through on?
That's a great question. Actually, the business model that I didn't have time to present is the method through which we are breaking that barrier. So our business model is actually to license the product to all of these big OEMs. What we do is we go and pilot the product with the end customer. We also fulfill low volume orders, but eventually our goal is to license the technology to somebody who can actually build these products in volume and sell to the operator.
Got it. Last question for me, and hopefully I'm not stealing it from anybody else, which is, are you looking at private enterprise wireless networking as well as an opportunity? Because that might be a faster route than just commercial carriers.
Absolutely. We are looking at that opportunity in a big way, and our partnership with Cisco is actually really going towards that segment. So we hope to come out with a really low profile kind of a product especially for that application.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Rob, you have a question for Neha?
I do. It may have been on one of your slides. I think it flipped through very quickly, but just in terms of actual throughput, over a 10-kilometer distance, how much can you backhaul? And what's that kind of, is it symmetrical, I guess, in its nature?
Yes. So Rob, we do today 1.5 Gbps throughput over a 250 megahertz channel bandwidth. But the good thing about E-band is that you can increase that channel bandwidth to even 2 gigahertz or even 4 gigahertz. So that 1.5 Gbps can actually tomorrow in the next version of our product can multiply to 10 Gbps. So that's kind of the requirement. What we see in most of the rural areas is that 1 Gbps to 2 Gbps kind of is what they're looking for. But we are actively looking for more inputs from operators like Thales to tell us what is required.
Great, thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Neha?
Just more of a comment. Neha, have you talked to big in India? Big guys? Reliance guys?
Reliance, yes, of course. Reliance and Airtel both. So we will be possibly doing our first field trial with one of them.
Okay.
But in India, actually, the spectrum is not open yet. So we can just do trial, but we cannot sell yet. The selling will happen probably next year in India.
Okay. I just want, we have a good connection with the big guys. So, but if you know, that's good.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Neha. And just a reminder, all of the pitch decks from the presenting companies, as well as all the companies that applied to present, are available on the GCV Connect platform. If you do not have access to it, you can email me directly, Ken at Proseeder, as well as Valeria at Proseeder, and we can help you, or anyone else on this team can assist. And there's also pitch decks in there, hundreds of companies over the last year that have presented at the GCV Connect ProSeeder sessions. So all that information is available, and to the startups, you have the ability to update those presentations as time goes on. Be aware that corporates could be logging in and viewing them, so you want to have the most recent information in there. Next up is Edwin Hernandez from Igla Corp. Welcome, Edwin.
Hey, hello, hi guys. I want to introduce myself first. I been in the mobile wireless world since around 2000, when I was a student at the university and I worked on my PhD in mobile computing. And since then, I had experience working for both Microsoft in the software side, as well as Motorola in the mobile computing side. And I've been a judge for the Mobile World Congress. So I have quite a few patents in this sector. And this is something that came out of my incubator. It's something that we've been developing. It's called the Next Generation Spaces. I run a technology incubator here in Florida, and we always have the issue about secure co-working and remote offices for a next generation workforce. What that means is that who is working for who, where's my information? Some people are moonlighting, there are data breaches, all kinds of issues right now for the workforce. And then we see that it's a huge market opportunity because there are hundreds of remote co-working spaces and thousands of offices and millions of people working from remote that need basically to meet certain needs of safety, security, especially the information when people are remotely working today. So what we decided is to see, like, let's find a technological solution for this problem that allow workers to keep working remotely, but allows the offices to be secure. So we created this two devices, basically has one for access control that includes a badge with NFC or any other card like that. And then there's a little bit of biometrics, and another device that basically has a Wi-Fi 6 access point that we are working on connecting on 5G right now. So we have a 4G version, and obviously that's working okay. And basically it's an access control mechanism that allows physical control to an area, to like an office or a remote office or a conference room, for example, that is being leased in a co-working space. And at the same time creates the environment that is controlled by the 5G network. So we use the network slicing feature in 5G to enable the access to a secure communication channel between the remote office and the headquarters, where the cloud basically is controlled by corporate. So in a way, then we secure the room by badging in, and automatically after you badge in, then you have this device that enables you to have a secure connection. So then we have this door control mechanism for physical control. And then we have this office manager that provides access to the door and basically brings this bridge between the 5G and the Wi-Fi 6. Obviously, we bring a couple of components like Edge AI, for example. So then the system can know when somebody's supposed to be there and when not supposed to be there. It has sensor, door management, access to the network, and creates the VPN channel between the network slice channel between the endpoint, the remote office, and the corporate. So we tried that in an incubator. We have an incubator here in Florida with 10,000 square feet. So we're trying it right now. We're doing the first trial, and everything seems to be working fine. We have a small team. I'm going to run into a little bit into the revenue opportunity here, because what we see here is that there's a cost associated to the device. It's a monthly fee. So then people will be able to purchase and convert the remote office spaces into secure co-working spaces for corporate environments. So then the remote workforce can go and work for a new location and basically maintain a secure link between their office and the corporate. So in a way, then anyone can keep working remote and solve the issue right now using 5G, using network slicing. So then the slice of the network that is assigned to that particular endpoint, the office manager, is secure. And using very conservative assumptions and basically have a few members, then we can get cash flow positive very quickly. Right now, I'm still funding the entire operation. We spend maybe like around $70,000 on this project already. And successfully, we want to have a go-to-market strategy. We need some capital so we can basically partner with more co-working spaces, so we can have more maybe empty buildings turned into co-working spaces. and we want to go to like different trade shows, and we want to spend heavily on ad sales on Facebook and Google Ads. So then all the co-working spaces around the country can convert their offices from being dorm offices, say, into a smart, secure space for corporate. And then corporations can basically qualify, okay, look, if you want to work remote, you need to work remote, but from this particular office, because I can see what's happening with you, that who is coming into the office, is somebody that's authorized to come into the office. And when you connect to the office, then it's actually a secure link. So we look for a small capital raise of $100,000. Basically, we don't look for a lot of capital. We don't believe we need that much. And basically, that's all we need right now so far, and we're done.
Great. Well, thank you, Edwin. Questions for Edwin? Rob?
Great. Who is the actual customer in this? Is it the property manager? Is it the corporation that's wanting to control access? Who is the end target?
I will say the end target is remote co-working space, because the co-working spaces can partner with corporations. So they can offer, let's say, a certified way to, like, okay, look, your employees come into our co-working space and it's a secure link. So I think that will bring more membership to those co-working spaces, so they can get like a monthly fees from those people. And it could be paid by the corporation itself, or it could be paid by the employee. So then that's something that we have observed, that it's mostly going to be paid probably by the employee, because it gives them flexibility to be closer to home. So they're willing to pay $200 a month, $300 a month for the membership in the accelerator or the incubator or the remote working space. And then at the same time, then that portion is allocated by the co-working, so we'll pay for the service fee, basically, because they have 20 doors and they make $300 for one person. Obviously, paying $400 a month for this is a no-brainer.
Okay. And you'd mentioned that it was also applicable for home offices. That wasn't clear to me how. Can you expand on that some?
Well, I've been dealing a lot with some clients that are attorneys, and then there's a lot of protective orders and things that are very complex to manage. So how do you track that my neighbor didn't come to my house and look at some very sensitive data on my desk because I was working on something? So I think corporations could require by some sort of a liability process to make that office space secure, basically. So your home office has this device. So then when you go to work and you're getting paid, you batch in with your badge, and then you get into your own office, and it turns the same behavior as you are in the remote office. In a way, it's more controlled. Then you make sure the worker is working and supposed to be working, and who is entering into this space. They maintain safety and security of the data that the corporation wants to keep safe and secure.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Hey, Edwin, this is Jim. I'm curious to know what your exit strategy is for the business. I can see you have a model for growth, but long term, how do you think about the exit for this?
The exit for this, I think, is going to be most likely an acquisition by all the real estate companies that are suffering right now. I believe that, like CBREs, we did a study, like there's a lot of vacancies, and then they don't have the expertise nor the technology to make a change. So I think that we will bring this technology and this package, basically any like building company will turn into a huge co-working company, or probably like a WeWork or like a Regus or one of those co-working spaces that are like more corporate, could potentially acquire the asset, because it's a solution that is being is solving a problem of all the vacancies and all this huge remote work using all that space.
Thank you.
Hi, Edwin. This is Amir. So my quick question is: are you manufacturing those units in-house at this point?
Yeah, everything 3D printed, all the hardware, everything is done in house right now. So we have all the schematics, all the design, all the software as well. So it's all written in Python. Basically, it's pretty open source, pretty easy to make, and I will say the cost is pretty minimal right now. So even at a retail, let's say, version of the cost comes to about like maybe $29 to $40 per unit right now. So it's very inexpensive. So then the most expensive part will be the 5G modem, which I believe could be like a $20, $30 cost as added into the equation. But the software is the same. It's no distinction, and the provisioning should be pretty straightforward once we get more clarity on how a partnership with some sort of a telecom that could benefit from this type of service.
Okay. I'll connect with you in the DM. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Edwin. Really interesting and very relevant at this time with all of us working remote. So thank you.
All right, thanks.
Next up is Elaine Healy with Aura Wireless.
Good morning. Very pleased to be here and presenting to such a targeted group. Elaine Healy, I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Aura Wireless. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, we are here to create awareness of the impact that Apogee has on network design and economics. We are looking for strategic and commercial relationships and are embarking on a Series A round. Previous to Aura, my partner Mark Giannini and I co-founded a company in 2002 called Excel Networks. We built antenna technology there too, but it enhanced the cellular networks to be used in mission critical applications. Excel served primarily Fortune 1000 companies such as O'Reilly Automotive, Cash America, Dunkin' Donuts, Trader Joe's, and others. When the company was acquired in 2015 by Sierra Wireless, we had deployed to over 8,000 locations. We are here. The problem we solve is we have solved the central problem in utilizing unlicensed spectrum. The limitation of low power devices has inhibited enterprise use for large scale mission critical applications. Our solution, the Apogee software defined antenna platform, makes it possible for IoT devices, tablets, and phones to connect from great distances to AP or base station. Every one of our products is focused on convergence, making the most of SD-WAN features and capabilities. We've developed a portfolio to target the fastest growing segments utilizing unlicensed spectrum for mission critical applications, among them IoT and private LTE. These statistics are field validated through multiple deployments across diverse topologies and terrains. We will share some real life examples later in the presentation. We took the platform approach to developing Apogee because it enables us to quickly and cost effectively iterate additional versions of Apogee to target high growth wireless sectors and use cases. The platform consists of the Apogee engine, which drives the arrays, and the Apogee Manager Cloud. Controlling coverage from the cloud goes right to our claim of reducing network operating costs. The value of the cloud starts at installation with our onboard installation tools, and the value continues since you no longer have to roll trucks to change or expand coverage areas, change polarities or bands. The next 4 slides are of actual deployments. They include big box retail, intermodal rail yard, smart agriculture, and municipal metro. This first deployment shows a very successful pilot in a big box retailer. There is a trend in big box retailing to expand operations by moving merchandise pickup and returns out to parking lots. The applications are mission critical, utilizing handheld POS devices and surveillance cameras, which must connect. In this case, they also wanted to ensure that their customers could connect to the network from inside their cars. 2 particular challenges in this case was the large coverage area and having to contend with lots of moving vehicles, which made for a very dynamic RF environment. We were able to cover the entire area with the highest degree of coverage with just 2 Apogees, replacing 5 AP locations that had only covered 20% of the area that Apogee covers. This is a rail yard of one of the largest railway companies in the world. They have multiple use cases, but they wanted us to start with eliminating the coverage gaps in their rail yards. This is the second rail yard we've done for this company. Here we've covered 42 challenging acres with 2 Apogees. The challenge was to cover 3 tracks of mobile double-stacked freight cars. Prior to Apogee, the 4 AP locations that were installed could not overcome the gaps. Workers with tablets running custom software inventory each car and identify maintenance issues, which has to be uploaded to the network. Because of the gaps, they were having to get back in their cars and drive to the coverage areas and connect to upload. This resulted in much higher costs and put the rail yard constantly behind schedule. 2 Apogees eliminated the gaps and reduced costs by 50%. One of the highest growing sectors trying to utilize unlicensed spectrum is smart ag. This farm is affiliated with a university system. We are concurrently doing an RF study for a similar farm in Brazil. Here we've covered 214 acres with 1 Apogee location. The use case is mobile robots equipped with IoT sensors that collect soil samples and upload the data to the network. The challenge is the robots and sensors are battery powered, which means very low power. This is a textbook example of Apogee's asymmetrical gain, which enables low power devices to connect at long range. And lastly, this is a small city in Virginia, 10 Apogees to cover 300 acres. This was designed by Aura for one of our reseller partners that was referred to the city by Verizon. The use case is public Wi-Fi, alternate network for police and fire, and the city is currently evaluating other smart city applications to utilize on their network. So this concludes the presentation. However, interestingly, in the last few days, we received an order for 10 Apogees to be utilized at a newly built refugee camp in New Jersey. So we are happy to take any questions.
So I'm curious, you're so Apogee is emitting both 5G signals. Did I also hear Wi-Fi in that as well?
Yes, we converge. First of all, we're not the AP, we're the antenna platform.
Sorry.
And
yep.
so our portfolio combines bands. We've tried to design it to go after certain sectors and put bands in that make the most sense. For example, the IoT, it makes sense to put, low frequency and higher frequency. Our most exciting product, I think, is our Apogee Converge, which is going to combine 5 gigahertz and band 48.
Yeah.
So, we've gotten a lot of interest from a lot of big companies that want to start utilizing private LTE. And of course, it makes more sense to put the, certain data over band 48. And because of our technology, we've been able to clean up 5 gigahertz and really send it far. So, we would distribute, certain other traffic over the 5G and, operating together. So the device is really 4 antenna arrays inside one device that's cloud controlled.
Makes a lot of sense. I can see this playing a pretty pivotal role in the enterprise longer term for private wireless. Yeah.
That's our space. Mm-hmm. We came to market just as COVID was breaking out. So we kind of, started with distance learning, but now we're very happy to be back into enterprise. And we think CBRS is going to be a huge selling point.
That's great. Thank you.
I'll jump in if there's no other ones. So just a quick question on the public Wi-Fi. If you are using, say, some of the lower frequencies for that, how many devices would be required, say, in a small city in Virginia in order to have that kind of usability of public Wi-Fi?
I'm sorry if I confused you. The lower frequencies we would put in an IoT use case. So we've designed a portfolio to address where we see a lot of growth among sectors. In the small city environment, that was our Wi-Fi, which is 2.4 and 5 gigahertz.
Okay. So in that case,
it's the AP that decides what the concurrent sessions are.
Okay. So how many devices would be required, say, in that city of approximately 300 acres?
Yeah, we covered that with 10 Apogees, 10 Apogee locations over 300 acres. So if you can imagine what that would take with legacy antenna technology. So we really collapse infrastructure costs.
Thank you.
And the limitation, of course, is the low power devices coming back to the AP. you can broadcast over large distance, but if your user devices can't get back, it's not worth it. So
Exactly,
we've been able to, with our say asymmetrical gain, allow low power devices to get back to the network.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Elaine, thank you so much. Next up is Jorge Munoz with Unmanned Life. This is our last presentation for today.
Thank you very much, Ken. Hi, everyone. I'm Jorge Munoz. I'm the Vice President for Business and Marketing at Unmanned Life. Well, at Unmanned Life, we believe that the future is autonomous, and therefore we have created this platform. When I'm talking about this platform, I want you to think about a central brain that is able to orchestrate autonomous robotics. That's why we say that Unmanned Life is the software platform for seamless orchestration of autonomous robotics. You will also notice that everywhere in the presentation, we highlight the fact that we are a native 5G native platform. And it's because when we create the whole idea of this platform, it was at the time that 5G was starting to roll out. So we always thought that 5G is the future, so we need to be compatible with 5G. But before we get to the details of the platform, let's get a really quick overview of how the market looks like today. So of course, as you know, robots have been there for years, decades, but today we see an increase on the adoption of autonomous solutions. And this adoption of autonomous solutions is because there is certain sectors growing really, really fast. And in order for those sectors to keep growing as fast as they're doing it today, they need autonomy. This is also because the market is expanded really, really fast. And of course, 5G is helping to this expanding, but other technologies like AI or edge computing are also enhancing this growth. So today we have identified a challenge, but first, this is some numbers for you to give you an idea of what is the challenge that we are targeting here. So far by 2025, we're expecting to have 1.5 million commercial drones and more than 4 million commercial robots deployed globally. And the problem here, or the challenge, is the fragmentation of robotics due to different operating systems working together in the same place. So fragmentation is the problem that we're solving with our platform. So we have created Unmanned Life. Unmanned Life is one platform with multiple cutting-edge capabilities to deploy and control autonomous fleets or swarms of robots. In here, I'm gonna drive you through very quickly on our capabilities. First of all, we're an AI-driven software platform. We have an agnostic approach to the hardware. We do software, we don't do hardware, so we can connect with almost any kind of hardware out there. We mix this hardware and we make, the robots, and we create swarms of fleets of drones and robots. All of this is done through sensor data fusion. So we collect the data and we fusion this data in the central brain that you see in here, and then the robot becomes fully autonomous. We also centralize all the operations in one management single interface. We are highly interoperable across networks. We can, of course, deploy over 5G, but we can also do it in 4G, on industrial Wi-Fi, and even in a hybrid position. And last but not least, we have an open approach to integrate with business information systems and other analytic platforms. At Unmanned Life, we have 3 verticals. The first one is that we're a flexible platform. Here you will see different sectors and in different verticals, but don't think about us only on this. We don't sell solutions, we sell applications as software that can be applied anywhere that autonomous robotics is needed. But so far we have tractions in the logistics sectors and public safety, emergency response, smart manufacturing, and so on. The second vertical of our platform is that we are interoperable. And we're interoperable, as I already mentioned, we have an approach, agnostic approach to the hardware. So we can deploy on outdoor drones, indoor drones, autonomous mobile robots, any type of robots, robotic arms, even drones that goes under the water. And we can even integrate human beings in the platform so they can work with robots in the same place. We also have this approach, an interoperable approach with the network, so we can do 5G, 4G, hybrid solutions there. We also can do operations indoors, outdoors, or hybrids. I will explain later on a use case that we have where we're doing both. And last but not least, and very important for the industrial clients, we have an interoperable approach when it comes to the deployment model. So we can do it on the cloud, on premises, on the edge, or even a hybrid. In some cases, the client, the huge industrial clients, prefers to keep all the data that we're collecting on premises, but the intelligence of the robots running on the cloud. So we have this flexibility, and this can be deployed in this way. And the last is that we're an open platform. Yeah, it doesn't mean that we're open source. This means that we are open to integrate with business information systems, IT systems, UTM systems, and so on. All of this seems very beautiful, but this is the reality. This is our market traction. As you see, we are working with huge companies out there, and we have an approach, a really strong partnership model with telcos all around the world. In North America, we work with TELUS and T-Mobile. In Europe, with Telefonica, British Telecom, Deutsche Telekom, and of course, Magenta. In the Middle East, with Etisalat and KDDI in Japan. All of these partners give us a lot of visibility, let's say, when it comes to get clients. Last but not least, and with this, I think I'm gonna finalize, is the live projects that we have today. And this is gonna give you the idea of the power of this platform that can apply in different sectors. So last week we were in the city of Vienna with this Magenta Telecom and the firefighters deploying emergency response in the city center with drones. Drones that are doing search and rescue. At the same time in Spain with Telefonica and SEAT, that is part of the Volkswagen group, we deploying 5G smart manufacturers in the assembly line. We also part of different consortiums like 5G drones, smart manufacturers, and last but not least, the urban air mobility project that is super important now in Europe, that is called GOV2. So basically here you have the glance of all what we can do with this platform. To finalize, this is going to be my closing slide, and it's why we're unique. We're open and very important, we modular platform. So we can deploy these models anywhere that is needed. We're very easy to configure. We centralize orchestration of robotics. We're highly interoperable across networks, and we have a flexible deployment model. Well, happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
This is Amir from Mara. Really love what you're doing. But it's appeared more to me, at least, more of like you guys started with services model and then you are more productizing it. How far along are you in that journey itself?
So today, of course, let's say our business model is a SaaS model. So it's how we're working, but it will depend, of course, on the client and on the partner, right? So we're still figuring out which is the best model to go out there. But usually our, let's say our business model is, well, you pay for the setup cost, and then of course you pay a monthly license per unit deployed. In some cases, of course, you will need, if we're talking about industrial use cases, smart factories, for example, we are able to deploy a numbers type of UGVs or AMRs. So it will depend also on how big is the deployment. For emergency response, you don't need more than 3 drones, for example, but it will depend on the use case.
Okay, good, thank you.
There is one question from that's in the chat from Martin Hemming. And maybe you take this one, Jorge. So you're deploying this globally, correct? And how you're dealing with the different standards in each of the regions.
Well, therefore, we're working with in strong partnership with the telcos, right? Telcos are giving us not only the connectivity, but the credibility, cybersecurity. So, of course, we alone, we're still a startup, and we cannot go from Japan till Canada alone. That's why we, as I present, our go-to-market strategies go in partnership with telco operators, but we can also do other type of partnerships.
Great. Well, if there are no further questions, this wraps up our, thank you so much, Jorge, our pitch event for today. Thank you so much to all the startups that presented, as well as to the ones that did not get the opportunity to do so. Again, all of the startup information is available, as well as the opportunity to connect with them on GCV Connect, powered by ProSeeder. We encourage you to do so. If you do not have access, please request access, and we'll provide that to you. So thank you so much. And with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Kellyanne.
Thank you, Ken, and once again, thank you to the entrepreneurs who have just pitched, and to our judges for their insightful questions. I'd like to lead the short roundtable discussion that I prepared for today here, and I'd like to involve both the judges or panelists and the entrepreneurs who have pitched. So I'd like to open with the first question, which relates to 5G, obviously, and the fact that there appears to be much optimism regarding the technology and regarding any technologies that might emerge off of 5G, and the sort of opportunities this could open up for such technologies to flourish. So I would like to ask each of the judges as investors, what is their take on this? Is it an unbounded optimism? Is it a cautious optimism, or is it optimism with certain caveats? So maybe Jim, if you would like to start.
Yeah, certainly. According to IDC, they published an analyst report last year and then upped their analyst forecast. But according to them, digital transformation went from a $2.8 trillion opportunity to a $6.8 trillion opportunity. Globally, all carriers combined generate about $1.2 trillion of revenue a year. So you can see there's a significant amount of upside. Now, the move to digital will require a bigger dependency on data acquisition, and data is going to be collected primarily, in my belief, through wireless networks. So 5G is, in my opinion, a far bigger opportunity than just connectivity. And the classic business model is really where the real innovation for the carriers is going to really play out. And that really means a pretty hard look at how they're generating revenue today, which is purely connections based, into how they could potentially be aligning themselves where value gets created in the software ecosystem. And that means rethinking their approach. What we're focusing on in the lab is really about that digital transformation impact as it moves enterprises forward. All the startups we work with are focused on enterprise technologies. And so we think that 5G is really a huge enabler. We also think that it's going to unlock so much potential on the edge, for which the carriers around the world really have a very fundamentally solid position in. What they haven't really been able to do at scale yet is to really, build inroads into the software development ecosystem, the same ecosystem that stood up the public cloud, and really build capabilities that allows those applications to run on their networks natively on the edge. And so that's the area that we're exploring, and that's where I think 5G is pretty important. Now, what's also really interesting to see it play out is that 5G is really splintering from public wireless, which we've talked at length about today, but also private wireless as well. And here in the United States, as far as I can see, there's been a lot of dabbling and experimentation by enterprises around standing up their own private wireless networks, whether it's 4G LTE based today or future 5G in the future. All of that to say, I think it's a huge opportunity for the carriers. It's a real big opportunity to get super close to the software ecosystem, which is where a lot of the value gets created.
I see. Amir, maybe you would like to chime in with a comment?
Yes, absolutely. I agree with Jim in a lot of ways. Excuse me. As I mentioned earlier, we focus on more 5G use cases itself. So we're seeing a lot more happening in the technologies that upcoming with 5G that 5G make it possible. So in the space of AR, VR, we're seeing ed tech really forming up, where you see that people can actually use the AR, VR devices like Oculus itself in educating the students worldwide. So we're seeing a lot of that happening up. Mostly, I think 5G for about now and about 3-4 years from now is mostly enterprise based. Yes, you can watch YouTube faster on your phone, but you can still watch YouTube video on your phone with 4G. But I think I will see a lot more happening in the enterprise space with 5G itself. People, when they started out, the iPhone came out. I think I was iPhone 12. I loved their advertise that it was an ad that Apple did, was like blasting, kind of like that, right? For average consumer, it doesn't really affect their life as much, but mostly like it's on the enterprise side, and it's going to happen a lot more on that side.
All right, and Rob, your take?
Yeah, no, I'm totally aligned, which is I would love to be the contrarian in this one, but I think the use cases are absolutely what we're focused on. It's the services that will go across that network. We are going to obviously deploy as a national telecom provider. We're obviously going to deploy the hardware. We're going to deploy the spectrum, which we paid many billions of dollars for. And that's got to be used. But the real key thing for our group is to look for those services that'll go across it. How are we going to fill up that massive bandwidth? And ultimately, I guess to Amir's point, what is that killer app for the 5G? Yes, we can watch YouTube videos faster, but that's not going to be what drives the 5G. And so that's what we're looking for. That's the services. That's what we're interested in. That's where we're investing.
Great, great. Now, since there is no contrarian view here, I guess I'm gonna have to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, and I'll extend this question to you guys as well as to the entrepreneurs. Now, we're all probably painfully familiar with some sort of a semi-conspiratorial movement with these weird theories about 5G and its harmful effects on people's health. And while they're completely unfounded, from scientific standpoint, I feel like they might cause some damage in much the same way the anti-vaxxer movement has caused damage, because, you know, the similarities are fairly striking. You have an outlandish claim with no substance from scientific standpoint, but that plays with people's fears, the very primal fear. And that causes real damage, and it has caused real damage, such as, you know, outbreak of measles that we have not seen since the 50s of the past century. And it's the same way, in a way, with 5G. There are groups of people who believe this is causing cancer, and they would destroy any, you know, box that they perceive to be a 5G antenna or any sort of related 5G device. So that's obviously something that could cause real damage, right, in terms of the infrastructure investments, in terms of connectivity, and so on. So I like to ask you guys, how do you take that sort of, not necessarily downside, but that sort of risk? How do you analyze it? How do you perceive it? And to the startups here on the panel, because actually, well, all of them are related to 5G, but particularly Jeff's solution and Neha's solution were very much, you know, the kind of antennas, and actually Elaine's solution as well, that might be perceived as, you know, some threat by radicalized people like that. How have you dealt with that?
If I may take that question.
Yeah, sure.
That's a funny question. The day I started my firm, and really the thing everyone asked me about this question, and it's like, what 5G is causing this? I keep seeing on Facebook and social media, especially the folks who are a little bit older, who are like pampered with this false information. There was a case recently, if there's anyone Indian on this thing here, there was a case with a prominent actress from the 90s that actually sued 5G companies in India for causing cancerous issues. The Supreme Court actually rejected that case and actually fined her for wasting their time. So, I mean, that's one approach countries can take, really. Secondary approach, I think education, right? We are here educators. Me, Jim, Rob, people here, we're educators of 5G, right? We need to tell people, we need to educate people, no, it's not really causing this. But here's the answer to this. Educate, I think governments can take, and telcos can take that education approach. It's a fear of unknown. And I go back to the same ad that Apple did, it was like blasting something. It was kind of a little bit of thrilling at the same point. It's like, oh, something new is launched. Okay, so education on the telcos part is very important. People are afraid of unknown, and telling them that, okay, this is not a just leap for you and me, it's a leap for the world that we're doing, actually, the whole new thing. And educating people would be really, my thought would be to deal with this.
For our part, you know, we operate in 1 watt. We're in unlicensed and lightly licensed. So we've not encountered a problem like that, and probably won't, given, you know, our power output.
All right, fair enough. Jeff, perhaps if you have stumbled upon any sort of issues of that sort. I'm just
Well,
curious.
we have the same issue of trying to educate the people. In our case, we're finding the host sites for it, right? So we
Right.
have to educate the host to tell them a radio on your rooftop is not going to give you cancer. That is an education process. To your point, none of the frequencies that are being used ionize electrons. So the whole idea about cancer, we just say no. To Elaine's point, though, power, it is a balance between power and frequency for heating up something, and you don't want to go beyond the power limits imposed by the FCC, and so that's our education. We basically say what the FCC has determined to be safe is what we recommend for equipment.
All right. All right. Any other sort of comments on this issue here? Okay. Education, that is the key. I think we would all agree. We would all agree with that. Now, as I mentioned in my intro, at the enterprise or B2B level, 5G and Wi-Fi 6 technologies appear to be very promising for enterprises in terms of operational efficiencies and investments from enterprises in that seem to have been accelerated according to the survey of networking executives done by Deloitte. So my question is, do you guys as investors see this reflected in how the startup ecosystems are reacting and have reacted to this during the past year and a half, with having the pandemic in mind and all the rest of it? Perhaps Rob, if you could.
Sure, I can just speak to our experience. We have been searching for those services companies. I'm really glad that there's like entities like both Jim and Amir's that are doing accelerators in the 5G space, specifically around that. And we'll be very interested to see what comes out, because there's been an absolute dearth of services companies that provide real value-added services that will go across 5G. There's some people that are trying to do incremental benefit over what they've been doing on 3 and 4. And maybe there's something there, but it is truly incremental. It's not that real step function that we're looking for on a ventures basis to be able to say, wow, that surprises, that's really where we want to go. And so, yeah, we're waiting. We've got check in hand, just waiting to do stuff. And when they come along, we'll be ready to go.
All right. And Jim and Amir, if you could share with us what your observation has been.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, it's really two sides of one coin. The first side is there's a lot of what I'm seeing. There's a lot of interest in enterprise startups to kind of explore what would be possible with some of this 5G and edge infrastructure, things that they couldn't do before that they can do today. So that's really strong. And then the enterprise opportunity is undisputed. There's certainly no doubt about that. But the other side of the coin is, and Rob, I mean no disrespect, but there's some resistance on startups working with, or even venture working with, the telecoms, because they haven't been generally seen as very innovative. We're certainly not fast movers, and yet here they are with this fantastic opportunity.
Agree. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't move very quickly.
Well, so
like on a network basis, we do not move very quickly. So I completely agree.
Well, and what's interesting about that is the network architecture is going cloudification anyways, which by virtue of, if we've learned anything from public cloud, is all about speed, right? And so there's this, I would say from my vantage point, some sincere, strong interest, and that freight train is going to move whether the carriers are there or not. That's just reality. But on the other side, the carriers are kind of looking at this business model that they've made enormous wealth from and saying, well, look, does this ARPU model really make sense in the next 10 years? The debate's raging on that. Should I kind of learn from what's been played out in the cloud, and how many of those principles really apply to us? And that's where we want to operate in, right? That's that art of the unknown. And so we created the lab really to say, look, you don't have to blindly guess. Get close to the startup ecosystem, kind of see where those use cases are going, the technologies, and then slowly but surely over time narrow that digital chasm gap that exists from where you are today to where you think you might have to be in the future, without guessing and doing company bets. Jeff Bezos once famously said he doesn't do company bets. He does a lot of little bets. Some of them are successful, some of them are not so successful. but nonetheless, he's experimenting and betting along the way, and that's led to Amazon's great success in many different respects, including AWS. So I think it's a really interesting dynamic. But one thing I've always told people is if you look back to the history of computing from the days of mainframes that really predated me in large ways, and then the future of quantum that will predate me in large ways as well on the other end of the spectrum, all of that is infrastructure that services applications, all of that. And so the closer anyone can get to where applications essentially reside, for which new value can get built upon, the higher likeliness of success you'll have. And I think in some cases, people are already talking about 6G, which is kind of foolish because we haven't really started with 5G. If you really think about it, most of our phones connect to 1 or 2 5G towers, but it's not pervasive yet, nor is it well understood in the enterprise world. But anyhow, this is really the 1G, in my opinion, as a software guy looking into the telecom industry. This is the 1G that really matters. This is the one that will lead to a lot of new discoveries and new opportunities for the carriers to rethink and reimagine the value that they want to create, both for their enterprise customers and their consumer customers. It's an exciting space, but lots of questions.
All right, Amir?
I'm good. They already said what I wanted to say anyways.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now I'm conscious we're kind of approaching the top of the hour, so I'll skip some of my questions. I'll move to one that I find particularly interesting, and I think I could engage both you guys and the startups, which relates to valuations. So, like I mentioned, due to the injections of liquidity that we've seen from central banks around the world, asset prices have gone up and valuations seem to have gone up. So I'm curious if that is something you've seen in startups from the pure play telecom space as investors, and also as founders and entrepreneurs, if that has benefited you, if that has sort of allowed you to increase valuations of the rounds you guys are raising respectively. So who would like to take the first shot here?
Yeah, I'll go.
Go ahead.
Really, especially in Silicon Valley itself, the valuation has skyrocketed, and they have, and there's nothing new here. And Seattle is similar ways, like very similar valuations. Really focusing on this, I have seen that even though the telecom space has not caught up to the software yet, so the founders are working on the telcos, they're not at that point, and that is truly the base of really and investors are not too much investing like very heavily on this, in my opinion, because the resistance from telcos, right? Innovation in that side. The companies, for example, we invested in a company called Feather Cloud. It's an Israeli company, great guys, very, very good team, very good product. And they struggled to get the first pilot, and they're a CDN company. So they were like, next generation CDN. They wanted to put their devices right on the base of telco towers for faster video transfer. So really the resistance is what causing this. They struggled initially, and we've seen that a lot. I believe what Jim is doing is really, really good. And I think we need people like Jim and 5G OIs a lot more. We need people, we need telcos working with that innovation hub. They all say we have innovation arm, but they don't really work. I think what you guys doing, Jim, we need this more and more.
Thank you.
To make this happen. That's my opinion.
All right, Rob, you seem to have a comment.
It was just adding on to, I guess, the valuation, and the experience that we've seen has been just astronomical in terms of like what companies are able to, or like good companies are able to raise, and even some questionable ones. Just that, like to value a company at over $100 million with functionally no revenue is just crazy. And it is ultimately what somebody's willing to pay. And that is really what the valuation comes down to at the end of the day. And we're trying to find value within that, and looking forward to sort of look at what those exit opportunities might be, and try to justify what we're paying now to what we could ultimately achieve. So it's a challenge, not insurmountable, but certainly a challenge. And that's what we're faced with right now current situation.
Right, right. Jim, unless you have some comments, let me just ask some of the entrepreneurs what their experience has been like in terms of raising rounds. Anyone who would like to chime in? Edwin?
Oh yeah. So raising capital is in Florida is very complicated. It's very difficult. So I think most of us in my incubator have learned to cope with that disadvantage as opposed to the Valley. Just one of our startups right here just raised, I think 1.5 million, okay valuation for them, but so we're happy with that. But I think we have to learn how to like find problems and solutions, and people can pay for it without just expecting a capitalization. Because I think the mistake I've seen we make, and a lot of the startups make, is that they create this business plan and they go in this endless pitching competition things, and they forget that the main factor is get a customer that can pay for the things you built and start getting some revenue. If it's $1,000, if it's $60,000, something small to begin with. So I think our strategy has shifted from raising capital to more like, okay, let's do it and let's get customers. If we get customers, then now there are multiple financing opportunities besides venture capital that can come, as well, even banking. Maybe you're bankable now because you're generating revenue. So there's multiple things that we're shifting the strategy, but we'll be happy to see more of investment coming from the West Coast to the East Coast, which is beginning in Florida. But in Florida, it's very, very hard to raise capital.
Mm-hmm. All right, sounds good. Any other comments on valuations and rounds? Elaine?
I would just add that our company has been financed by us founders and our accredited investors, our first round folks. So to the extent that asset prices have been bid up, we are blessed in that our accredited investors see that as well, and they're continuing to finance us. So this A round would be our first institutional round. So I'm liking what I'm hearing about valuations, but keying off of what Edwin said, we followed that path. So we have very large customers. We have demonstrated, with many proof points that we have technology, and now we're getting interest from offshore. So, this round would be a substantial round to really help us support the growth that, we've already generated. So some of these large companies, we can't bootstrap rolling them out. So, I think we're at the right place at the right time, sounds like. So.
All right. Thank you, Elaine. Okay, so with that, let's actually close today's session. Thank you very much to the judges and panelists. Thank you once again very much to the founders who have so generously given us some of their time and presented their ideas. Stay tuned for our upcoming pitch webinars, and be safe and have a wonderful day, night, evening, or afternoon, wherever you might be in the world. Goodbye.